We are celebrating Food Security Month, or Week, sorry, National Food Security Week and Food Security Week here in Montgomery County. And it's something that Councilmember Albornoz and I have really partnered on. I know he'll talk about that. I'm really excited. But something that I've been very focused on, along with everyone behind me and many, many more volunteers and other staff for the last several years. The food work in the county has been a bright spot since I've been on the council, even before with the creation of the Food Council. But we really kicked into high gear when we saw the need out there in the community during the pandemic. Almost a doubling of the need of food security. And we kicked into action with all of the great partners who you'll hear from shortly. And we stepped up and laid an even deeper foundation for greater work to make sure that everyone in our county has the food that they need to survive. And so we have a proclamation today that we're going to read shortly after I introduce Councilmember Albornoz and then our guests, recognizing the great work that's been done, but also laying the foundation for the great work that needs to continue. And it's perfect to go right after our friends from the Muslim Foundation who have been right there on the front lines. I'm glad you stuck around for this because you were a critical part and are a critical part of this work as well with all the distributions and food that you've done. So before I turn to our guests, I want to turn to Councilmember Albornoz to make a couple of remarks, and then we'll introduce our guests to talk about all the great work they've been doing very briefly.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure and privilege to really recognize this week. And as Councilmember Jawando mentioned, the way that our communities stepped forward to address the myriad of needs facing our residents who were in crisis has truly been inspiring. And the system that had been established in Montgomery County, thanks to the Food Council and many of the incredible nonprofit organizations partnering with the county, was tested in ways that we never thought was possible. But because of that infrastructure and because of all of the many organizations, both public, private, and nonprofit, that have entered into this space, we are in a far better position than we ever thought we would have been at the beginning of the pandemic. Right now, there are about 100,000 people in Montgomery County who are food insecure, 40,000 of which are children. That means these are individuals who are not sure where their next meal is going to come from. In a community as rich as ours, and when I say rich, I mean that in every way imaginable, we have an obligation to make sure that we address food insecurity in our community, and we have the ability to do so. Thanks to the incredible work of the people behind me, the Montgomery County Community Foundation, our private philanthropy, our business sector, and the county government stepping forward, I think we can credibly say that we can end childhood hunger here in Montgomery County. There's no reason we can't. And we can move on from there and address the needs of our other communities as well. So over the next several years, you will be hearing about the strategic planning and the work that will go into making sure that we solve this issue and address the underlying conditions that lead to it in the first place. It all has to happen together, and we must work together to achieve this incredibly laudable goal. So thank you all so much for being here and inspiring us every day to not just feed our community with food, but with love and with the affection and the support that we've desperately needed. I'll turn it back to Councilmember Jawando to enjoy and introduce our guests.
I will enjoy doing it too. Yeah. I wanted to mention, as I introduce, I'm going to go in order just the way you're standing. So throw you a little curveball. Yeah. Okay. But I want to introduce you first, Sandra, because I remember the day that we initiated a special appropriation here of $10 million to work with the Community Foundation, there you are, and support the Food Council, but also initiate Food for Montgomery, which Councilmember Albornoz kind of alluded to, this private sector, public sector partnership to raise funds to feed our residents, to support our farmers, and to help our restaurants that were creating prepared meals. And it was tremendously successful. But a big part of that was shelf-stable food. And all of you here in this room have been or seen the long lines at the food distributions, which we had really not seen. There were people up here, and you'll hear from them, who have been providing food, as you all have and others, but we had not had these massive hundreds, multiple hundreds of food distributions, people coming, lining up for 3-4 hours. That had not happened in Montgomery County, at least in my lifetime that I had seen. And that was a new thing. And we didn't know what we were going to do and how we were going to address that massive need that was just discussed. And you had people step up, like Kingdom Fellowship AME Church. And you're going to hear about the Kingdom Cares Initiative from Sandra Mann, who are now our East County hub. You're going to hear about the Up County hub. These are things that, and groups that helped partner with people who had been doing this work like Manna and others for a long time and expanded our capacity and began what I think now is going to allow us, as Councilmember Albanaz said, to solve childhood hunger and to go from there and to keep going down that path so that no one in this county, in the wealthiest county, in the wealthiest state, in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, 10% of our residents should not be hungry every night. It's a morally unacceptable. And Sandra and Kingdom Fellowship stepped up in the eastern part of our county, are serving as our hub. And I remember that first distribution we did when we partnered White Oak Rec Center with them, and we lined up, and people were there for, at 7 a.m. for a 10 a.m. distribution, waiting in line, and it was cold. And the county executive called me, and the chief of police called and said, "What are you going to do with all these people?" It was right in the middle of COVID, and we organized it and we figured it out, and it served as a model. And so many others around the county stepped up, and now we have 8 hubs that are serving not just food, but testing and diapers and a whole range of things, as you'll hear. But for me, I'm so proud of everyone up here, and I wanted to introduce Sandra to give a minute speech about what the work that they've been doing.
Good morning. Thank you, Councilman Jawando, and to our president and county exec, and to the rest. Like many of our nonprofits and faith-based organizations, we thought we were doing enough, and then the pandemic hit, and we realized that the faces of hunger, the faces of need, look very much like our own. And so we had to mobilize differently. And so through the vision of our executive director of the Kingdom Care Center, Reverend Kendra Smith, who was under the weather today, and through our senior pastor, Reverend Matthew L. Watley, we were able to mobilize over 300 volunteers. We were able to mobilize the community. Thanks to the wonderful partnership, we became an East County hub. And so we were able to do a wonderful thing of serving over 60,000 households to date. Providing 1.5 pounds of food, 1.5 million pounds of food. We expanded to 6 locations across Montgomery County, and now we're into Prince George's County as well. We've established over 15 strategic partnerships to address this need, to ensure that no family goes hungry. We also have deployed, again, over 300 volunteers, and we have been able to provide over $75,000 in a global effort to make sure, as shared before, this is something that is very, very, very important to us as Kingdom Fellowship Community Church and as our Kingdom Care Center. We're excited that we're going to be able to expand even further. In 30 days, we're going to break ground on our new Kingdom Care Center, which is a 94,000 square foot building that will focus on this work 100% of the time. So thank you again for the recognition, and we know that there's still much work to do. May God bless you all. Thank you.
And we're excited about that continued work. Now I'm going to go back in order. Anna Hargraves from the Community Foundation, who I called and was like, "Hey, I have an idea of this fund. Can you help me raise some money? We'll start it." And she said, "Okay, we'll do it." And she gets calls from us a lot in that regard, and she always steps up. Her and her team, and we created Food for Montgomery, and she's been a great partner and has funded the Food Council. So I'm going to introduce Anna Hargraves from the Community Foundation.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. It was our honor to partner with the County Council and Executive, the Task Force, and the Food Council in creating the Food for Montgomery Fund, which has raised $2.6 million to date. Now, our first wave of grants enabled our nonprofits and faith-based food distributors to purchase trucks, refrigerators, freezers, and other equipment essential to responding to the surge. But we also invested in our local farms, restaurants, and caterers, so that way they could stay afloat while providing healthy, nourishing meals to those who were hardest hit. Now, knowing that the federal relief is eventually going to run out, we decided to make our next round of grants focus on empowering our nonprofits to deepen their impact even further, prevent waste, and equitably meet the needs of our neighbors who are still struggling to put food on the table. Equally important, these investments will help build a more nimble and resilient food system that will help Montgomery County recover from the pandemic and make us more prepared for the next crisis. I absolutely have to thank our campaign co-chairs, Tracy Friedlander and Jean Sachs, our fundraising ambassadors, and the 1,000 people, businesses, and foundations who gave so generously to Food for Montgomery. I also must recognize the task force, the Food Council, and all of our frontline food distribution partners. Their ingenuity and extraordinary commitment converted those donations into relief for thousands of people across our county. And finally, I must express my appreciation to the council, with extra thanks to Councilmember Jawando for his leadership in getting this initiative going. Your collective vision was the spark that made all of this possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Heather Breskin, who leads our Montgomery County Food Council, which is one of the most important and probably thankless jobs in the county. And it started out very small, and now she does such great work. Heather Breskin.
Good morning. A little bit shorter here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Council President Albornoz, Councilmember Jawando, and the entire County Council, not just for this proclamation this morning, but for your incredible leadership and partnership in this critical work in our community. As we've already talked about this morning, in Montgomery County, we have incredible wealth, but that wealth and the bounty of our local food system is not shared equitably and equally by all of our neighbors. And we saw in Montgomery County a 50% surge in food insecurity as a result of the pandemic. We also saw a 50% increase in the number of residents who are participating in programs like SNAP. But what I see in those numbers is actually a story of the incredible partnership and community that was able to respond to this need and be able to provide safe, sufficient, nutritious, culturally appropriate food to as many neighbors as possible. And what I appreciate most about the ability to do this work in Montgomery County is how everybody sees that their organization, has a critical role to play in this work, and we all have steps that we can take to support our neighbors. In particular, our county government has truly stepped up to lead. They've invested in critical programs, created policies, and most importantly, partnered with the broader community to leverage the unique tools that we all have to fight hunger. I also want to make sure we recognize the over 120 food assistance providers that we have here in Montgomery County. They range tremendously in both their services as well as geographically where they're located, the types of communities and the residents that they support, but each of them plays a pivotal role, and they risked their health and safety during a public health crisis to be able to make sure that as many residents had meals and produce and meat and other critical resources in this crisis. There's not enough room in this room or time today to recognize the over 2,000 nonprofit organizations, philanthropists, residents, community organizations, government agencies, and so many more, farms and food and beverage businesses who played a role in this community response. I also want to recognize the residents who shared their lived experience and their voices to ensure the policies and programs that were being created to support them actually met the needs and identified the gaps where we still have work to do. And we do indeed continue to have work to do, but I'm so proud to do it here in Montgomery County. I appreciate the incredible Food Council team who's not here today, but they work so hard alongside every one of you to make sure that we have a stronger, more resilient food system here in Montgomery County to be prepared for whatever comes next.
There you are, the indomitable Judith Clark from Women Who Care Ministries. You're next.
Mahatma Gandhi said, "There are people in the world so hungry that God cannot appear to them except in the form of bread." I am Judy Clark, and I'm the CEO and founder of Women Who Care Ministries. And indeed, it takes a village to feed a kid and to feed a family. I want to thank the council for having us here today to receive this proclamation. Never in our entire 21-year history of serving families, and particularly children, have we seen such a demand, an increased demand for services. Sadly, now that so many emergency funds have disappeared, still hunger continues to escalate and affect so many households. And so we're grateful for the county and council's ongoing financial support. I believe I speak for most of us food providers when I say that the incredible work that we have done prior to COVID in fighting hunger pales in comparison to the increased tremendous upscale of services we were able to provide from 2 years ago to the present. It's been a lot of hard work, a lot of commitment, a lot of reduced sleep. But it was worth it, because when we lay our heads on the pillow at night, we are filled with a sense of purpose, of satisfaction, of pride, that by the work of our hands, so many of our residents have been able to eat as a result of the work we do. We've been able to make such a tremendous difference in the lives of these residents, most of whom we don't even know, but we're able to love and care for as though they were our own. Food security is so critical, not just in providing nourishment, but also in the sense of emotional relief it brings. The easing of anxiety to no longer have to worry where the next meal is coming from. Yes, hunger, so serious yet so solvable. We're proud to be a part of the solution, and we proclaim that we're going to continue to do our part in ending child hunger and family hunger, one precious child and one precious family at a time. Thank you.
Awesome. That was very inspiring. Mardia Dennis from our longtime partner, Manna Food Center.
Thank you, and excuse me. Good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here to represent all of my friends and coworkers and colleagues at Manna Food Center, and also really to just share how important the work that you inspired and spearheaded and really encouraged us to do. Your support really helped us to continue what we were doing. It was really hard, as all of my partners and friends up here have said. It was really challenging for us to really come together, leave our homes and come and do this work. But like Judy said, we really wanted to make sure that our neighbors and our friends were fed and are cared for. And your work just gave us, your funds and your support gave us the humble audacity to think that we could do it, right? Like, we went out there and we wanted to make sure that we could get it done. And I remember when Anna called and she said, we've got all these restaurant workers and they're out of work, and you need volunteers. What can we do? Bring them in. We've got some money. We can pay them. We'll make it work. And I remember when Heather came, and we were looking at the farmers, and we wanted to make sure they had all this food. And we had this child match software, and then what can we do with it? So we reconfigured the software to make sure that people who needed to do something, all of the volunteers, all of our neighbors, our friends here in the Montgomery County Muslim Foundation. I remember Mr. Muhammad would always call. He always reached out and always, wanted to connect our neighbors. And we made sure that we had deliveries, we had volunteers coming in and making sure that they made the connection and delivering food to people's homes. And what we've done now is we've been able to use all of this infrastructure that we put together and turn it into really hope and strengthening our food system. We now have vehicles that have been funded by some of the folks behind me, some of the philanthropists that we've heard about, the Food for Montgomery Fund. We've got innovators that are going into communities that have been previously underserved, that speak the same language, that know the types of food that people want. We're connecting them with farmers that are growing the types of food. And so this whole system is just really coming together and clicking in a way that I don't know if all of us thought was possible or who thought was possible, but I'm just pleased and so honored to be here. And I just wanted to say a special thank you from Manna Food Center to both you, Mr. Jawando, for your innovation. And also, I remember, Mr. Albanos, when you sent a video for us, for our staff, to just encourage us to keep going. So I want to thank all of you here, because that support really means community, and that's why we're here. So thank you for the honor today. I appreciate it.
And last but certainly not least, Grace Rivera Oven, who runs the Up County Hub, does a lot of things. but she and her family, it's been a family endeavor, have done a great job in serving so many needs. And I'm glad she's going at the end here because it encapsulates this wraparound approach and how this has developed over time to mean so much for so many in so many different ways. So, Gracie.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm a little shorter than you. Thank you so much. It's very emotional to be up here, and I just want to also remember the 2,000 county residents who lost their lives to COVID. Many of them, including in my family, we knew them, and they were part of our daily lives, and we missed them every day. So let me just say thank you to the council, to the county executive for believing in the hub model. So the hub, the county hub turned 2 years old last week, and we are delighted to be up county. It started with serving 23 families at the trailer park. It started just out of really desperation of helping those who were being impacted by this wave of need during the pandemic. And if you don't know what the trailer park is, please make the time to go and see your neighbors. It's the only trailer park in Montgomery County in the poorest neighborhood in Montgomery County. So I knew that this community was going to be impacted in a different way. There's no social distancing in a trailer park. And indeed, we lost quite a few dads and moms and grandparents and uncles in that community. But this would not have been possible without Black Rock Center for the Arts, which, if you think about it, a Center for the Arts became a huge food distributor in the county. So thank you to Lynn Arndt. And thank you to these three partners who gave us the seed money: HIF, Crystal Towson, the Health Initiative Foundation, the Latino Health Initiative, Sonia Mora, and the Blair and Michael Family Foundation gave us the seed money to keep Black Rock open during those 7.5 months that we went just on the shoulders of people like the Muslim Foundation. Let me thank you for the masks you gave us. I don't remember, we forget early on how we were making masks even out of socks. But this was the reality back then. And you guys came to my aid because these families needed masks. And I asked for 50, you gave me 500. Thank you. So the Greater Washington Foundation, we're feeding folks with hot meals. These families who lose their loved ones, children who have a hot meal. To my son Marco, he's amazing. I know parents, take pride in their kids, but this kid really came through and grew up within 2 years to this incredible leader, and he does it with such passion. And he always tells people, what we do is not charity. With these folks behind me, and just take a look, they're all women. I want you to notice that. This is a month of women, and this leadership back here who's taking care of this community every day. So I want to applause for these ladies because they are the true heroes of this community. And but the community in itself, this pandemic has taught us, and to many of us brought us to our knees to reflect on what's truly important in our lives besides family. And family now expands to community and to neighbors, to the elderly, who some of them are alone every night among us. And let me just give you a quick example. We got a call from a son in California who his elderly parents had no food in the refrigerator. They were from Taiwan, and he could not come over here because they had COVID. And his parents were petrified of going to the store. So they had been eating very rational, just very little. And we called them. I had to get somebody, one of my friends, to talk to them, and we took the food. Until this day, we're in contact with them. But the beauty of creating communities with giving to each other is that those communities come back to you and they give. So I'm honored to say that a lot of our volunteers, over the 4,500 hours in the last 6 months, many of them have been people who have received fruit from the county hub. And many of them have been young people that we are creating these future leaders of tomorrow who know what it is to give to others. And every single one of you in this room has something to do with that. And to both of these gentlemen next to me, to Councilmember Navarro, and who started, with gave Salud and Bienestar when our communities of color were desperately in need of vaccinations and so on, and we created a model and it was followed by others. That is what community is, and that's what leadership is in hard times. And I can proudly say that Montgomery County is my home, and it has opened, it has opened its arms to refugees from many places, including refugees that we are helping and serving from Afghanistan, and we do it with love. And again, this is not charity, this is a mission, and we do it with dignity to those who need a helping hand, because tomorrow might be one of us. We never know. So thank you, council members. Thank you, Gabrielito, as I called you. And thank you, Will, for just your support, and to the ladies behind me, and to all of those people who are helping our communities to make sure that no children goes to bed hungry at night. I thank you so much, and please don't stop until every child in our community goes to bed happy and has the right to get a good education the next day.
All right, let's read the proclamation. I'm going to let Council President start here.
Whereas March 27th through April 2nd has been declared Food Security Week in Montgomery County, highlighting individuals and organizations that have provided necessities and other resources to people and families in need throughout the pandemic. And
whereas food insecurity primarily affects people of color, low-income individuals and families, seniors, and children. The number of food insecure individuals in Montgomery County increased during the COVID-19 pandemic. By October 2020, there were 114,930 food insecure residents, up from 83,700 in 2018. And
whereas to help our neighbors in need during the pandemic, Montgomery County residents sprang into action. Local houses of faith, nonprofits, and community groups partnered with county government and created food distribution sites and food hubs around the county that also offered COVID-19 testing, immunizations, and
whereas in 2020, the Montgomery County Food Council identified a growing gap of resources required to address food insecurity in the county, and Food for Montgomery was created. Funding from this private-public partnership addressed the food security challenges of our residents while simultaneously supporting our local food banks, restaurants, and farmers. And
whereas without the partnership and ongoing support from our numerous providers, the devastation county residents experienced during the pandemic would have been significantly worse. We commend all these groups for their tireless service that continues as we work through COVID-19 recovery. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County hereby recognizes March 27th through April 2nd as Food Security Week, and be it further resolved that the County Council salutes every individual and organization who continues to provide resources to our Montgomery County neighbors in need. Presented on this 29th day of March in the year 2022, signed by Councilmember Jawando and myself. Congratulations, everyone.